Hey guys, what I've got here for you today is we're going to brew up a kit from Midwest Supplies from their Simply Beer line, and this kit's going to be the wheat kit, and it's an extract kit, but it's just a way to introduce you guys, if you haven't already begun brewing, into what it takes to make beer at your home. Now this is an entry-level kit, but it's designed to show you just how simple it is to do this. Now you've probably got most of the equipment that you're going to need to do this, but there are a few things that you probably don't have, and I'll explain that. The first thing you're going to need is a pot or some kind of kettle to boil your water in and then add your grains or extract to, and you're probably going to need at least a 2 to 3 gallon at the very least, and more than likely later on a 5 gallon or even 10 gallon, depending on what size batches you do. What we're going to do today is a 5 gallon batch, but what I've got here is probably a 3 gallon stock pot, and I'll show you just how easy it is to do it with just that. Next thing you're going to need is going to be a spoon to stir with, which you've got tons of those already in your drawer in your kitchen. Then you're going to need a thermometer to measure the temperature, and I'll show you when you need to do that as we progress through the process. And then you're going to need a fermenting vessel, and that could be a bucket, food grade bucket, or it could be a carboy. There's several options you can use, and we're going to be using a bucket today so I can show you just from the start. That's probably the one thing that you would need to go out and get, unless you have a food grade bucket already. The next thing you're going to need for your fermenter and your equipment is sanitizer. Now this is a step that is not optional, and it is something that you're probably not going to have already. You will need to go out and purchase that. And what I like to use is a product called Star San. It's a no rinse sanitizer. You mix it up according to the instructions, and it needs about 30 seconds of contact time on your fermenter to sanitize. Now sanitizing is different than cleaning. You will also need to clean your equipment, and that means we're using a mild soap or PBW, which is Professional Brewer's Wash. I believe that's what that stands for. And what that does is it gets it clean. The sanitation is the next step that you must do, and I'll show you that when we get to that later. And one of the last things you're going to need to determine if or how you're going to do is temperature control. Now, this is probably the one process that most brewers will tell you will improve your beer the most. A lot of people, if they live up north, they have basements that stays constant or close to constant temperatures in the 60s or 50s, and that's great. I live in the south where we have the opposite problem. Our temperatures are usually typically higher in the 80s, 90s, even the hundreds, and so we need to keep it cool. And when you're fermenting your beer, depending on the yeast you use, typically for ales, you want to keep that in the 60 to 70 degree range. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to use something called a swamp cooler. So just to show you how you can do it with what you have at home, the reason I'm going to do that. And a swamp cooler is where you have your fermentation vessel and you submerge it in some water, and then you can drape a t-shirt or a blanket or something over into the water and wrap it around your fermentation vessel, and the water will wick up into the t-shirt, and then the wetness of that t-shirt next to your carboy will absorb the heat from your fermentation vessel and wick it away. So it's supposed to help control the temperature of your wort. So I've never done that, so it's going to be something new for me too, so we're going to try and see how that goes. So having said that, I think I've covered everything. Let's get brewing. Alright, so here's the kit that we're going to be brewing today. Let's look and see what our ingredients are. Alright, first things first, here is our instructions. And then we have our liquid malt extract, which this is a wheat malt extract. I believe 6 pounds of that. And what we'll do with that is I'll put that in some warm water when we get our water up to a boil. It will help loosen all that on the inside. Then we have our hops. We have 1 ounce of Willamette. And then we have 1 ounce of Cascade. And then we have our yeast, which is the Safel US-05. And then we have priming sugar for bottling, 5 ounces. And then we have some stickers here that you can put on your bottles. So now let's get some water heated up and we'll get going. Alright guys, what I've got here is about 2.5 gallons of water that I've got heating up before we add our malt extract. And so just waiting for that to get to a boil. So I'm gonna put the lid back on here to help that process. We are almost to a boil here, so I'm gonna pause this for a second and go ahead and add our malt extract. And it's important that you turn off the heat when you do it, because this is a syrup and it will sink straight to the bottom. You can see how thick that is right there, and it goes straight to the bottom. And if you don't turn the heat off, you'll scorch it and it'll burn, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to pour all this in here, and then I'm going to give it a good stir. And once it's all dissolved, we'll get the heat turned back on. You can see that's a lot of sticky goodness. Alright, one thing I am going to do is once I get this out a little bit more, I'm going to get some of this hot water in here and I'm going to pour back in here, because you can, if I put this down here and see, you can see there's a lot of it sticking to the side. I did have this sitting in some warm water, probably should have had it a little bit warmer, but didn't do that. So I think we're about to the point where I can add some water. Use my spoon here, see if I can stop that without making a mess. Alright. So what I have here is just a measuring cup, and I'm going to reach in here and get some of this water that's hot and just pour it right inside here. And I'm not going to do a lot, I'm just going to do a little bit, maybe halfway full, and then I'll shake it up. That'll be enough. Maybe one more. That's good. And I'm going to let that sit there for just a second. Put this lid back on here and shake it up. Ooh, a little pressure there. I'll leave that cap off. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stir this syrup while that's going. Get it all good and mixed up. Some recipes will also have dry malt extract that goes along with it. This one though just has the liquid malt extract. Some also have steeping grains that will add some color and flavor. But like I said, this one doesn't have any of that. So give this a good stir and get it going. You can see the color already. Now this will be a 60-minute boil. We will have 2 hop additions. The Willamette will go in as soon as we get this up to boil, and it will boil the entire 60 minutes. And then the Cascade we will add with 10 minutes left in the boil. We're almost there. You can see there's still a little bit that hasn't dissolved that I'm picking up off the bottom. And if you're using your wife's pot, make sure you use a plastic spoon. so that you don't scratch the bottom. Otherwise, she won't let you use it again. Not that I know from experience. All right, I think we're good there. Now I'm going to add back what we had in the jug, because all of that is potential. You can see it coming out. Beer. I've got a full pot here. Probably should have not done so much. Word to the wise, when you do this at home, do not fill your pot with this much water to begin with, because the last thing you want is a boil over. Alright guys, as you can see, we're getting close to the boil. As you can also see, I probably, or you can probably tell, there's not as much liquid in there as it was before. And I'll be honest, I got a little bit scared that we were going to have a boil over. So what I did was, I had another pot, a little small pot, that I took some of it out. And what we'll do is we'll add it back in before the end of the boil. That way it gets up to temperature and gets sanitized. So you want your liquid to boil. We're coming up to a boil, and actually we've already been to a boil. Full confession, the battery on my camera died, and I had to swap it out right as we were getting close to the hot break. So the hot break's pretty much already happened. As you can see along the edge here, it's a good thing I took out that liquid, because it came up to here and was going to boil over. You see that foam there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add our first addition of hops, which will be the Willamette hops. These are our bittering hops. And what that's going to do is that's going to mix with the sweetness of the wort here, and it's going to balance out that flavor and give it that nice bittering. So I'm going to go ahead and add those now. A lot of people will have a hop sock to put these in, but the kit didn't come with any, so we're not going to use them any. So in they go. Now you also right here need to watch your first addition of hops. It could recreate that hop break, so we're going to keep an eye on that as well. But this is also a time we're going to start our timer. Our next addition is in 50 minutes. So that's when we'll be back for our next addition. If I can get my timer up, and we are ready to go. So be back in 50 minutes. Alright guys, as we're waiting for our last hop addition, we've got about 30 minutes left for that. This is always a good time once you've got your boil under control to sanitize your fermenter and get it ready. As you can see here, we've got a bucket. This is a 6.5 gallon bucket, and it's got the markings on the side that makes it nice. And what I've got, I've already went ahead, if you can see inside, you can see the foam there. I've got some star sand mixed up in there with some the sanitizer. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the lid on here, and I'm going to shake it around. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that all of the inside is coated. So we're going to get this on here and give it a shake. This is a new bucket, so it's the first time I've used it. So I'm going to get it down here and press the lid on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my finger over this hole here, and then I'm just going to shake this around and try to coat the whole inside of this bucket. As you can see, just want to shake it around, make sure every inch of the inside, top of the lid and everything is covered with sanitizer. And once it's on there, it really only needs a minute or two, if that, of contact time before you're sanitized. I've already washed this and cleaned it beforehand. But just gonna let that sit here, and once we're done with our bowl, we're already ready to go for that being sanitized. We are about 50 minutes in, and it's about time for our last hop addition, and it will be 1 ounce of Cascade hops. And as you can tell, or you can probably tell, I've added back that liquid that I took out earlier. So now there is our 50-minute timer. So we are going to add in our Cascade hops, and this is our last addition. And now we have 10 minutes left until flame out, and we will be done. Alright guys, we are just about at flame out, the end of our bowl. Now once we do that, we are going to put the lid on our pot here, turn the heat off, and then we're going to cool it as quickly as possible. Alright, as you can hear, we are at the end of the bowl. I'm going to put the lid on, turn the heat off. Alright guys, as you can see, I've already got this transferred over into a bin that's got some water in it with some ice packs already in it. We've started the chilling process, and the goal here is to get this down to pitching temps as quickly as possible. And the way we're doing it, you don't have to get it all the way down, because what I've got is some water, some bottled water that's been in the refrigerator since yesterday. And what we've got here is about 2 gallons of wort. And once we add the bottled water to that, it will get us up to our 5.5 gallons that we need in our fermenter. And since that's probably in the mid-30s, the bottled water that is in the mid-30s, we just need to get this down, I would say probably to 85 or 90 degrees as quickly as possible. And we should be good to go once we add our cooled water. So I'm going to go get some ice to add to this to help that process along, and we'll be back in just a second. Alright, as you can see guys, I've got ice added in there now. And as I stated earlier, or if I haven't stated it, I should have, it's very important from this step forward that everything that touches your wort be sanitized, whether that be thermometer, spoon, or anything. So we've got some ice and some water in there. So real quick, I'm going to check the temperature to see where we're at. Looks like we're still pretty warm, and we're at 172 degrees. So we've got a little ways to go. So I'm going to put that lid back on. We have chilled our wort down to around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and per the instructions that came with the kit, it said to add 2 gallons of cooled water to the fermenter, and we have done that. So now we're about to add our wort to this fermenter with the cooled water, and then we will add the necessary amount of cooled water to get us up to our 5-gallon mark, and we'll check our temperature then. So now I'm going to take the lid off here, and they suggest to leave as much sludge behind, but in this instance I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pour it all in, because it'll settle out once during fermentation, and we can just rack our beer off the top of it and leave it behind there. I am gonna I have a spray bottle here that has some star scent in it. I'm gonna spray the rim of the kettle here before I pour it in, just as a precaution. It may be overkill, but I don't mind. And if you see foam inside the kettle there's a saying in home brewing, which is don't fear the foam. So we don't fear the foam. It's harmless. so it won't hurt you at all. So we're going to pour this in here. Let's see where we're at. I am going to stop right there. You can see all that hop debris. There's not much liquid left. I'm going to leave that behind. And then we'll see where we're at. Looks like we need to add about a gallon. So I'm going to do that now. And then we'll stir it and check our temperature and go from there. So in goes another gallon. Cold water, let it splash now. Oxygen is your friend at this point. The yeast need that to reproduce. So we don't mind that at this point. So as I said before, anything that touches your wort needs to be sanitized. Looks like we are right above the 5-gallon mark. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Not a lot, but just a little. I like to have about 5.5 gallons. That way I get 5 gallons of beer. All right, we'll stop there. So what I'm going to do now is get a spoon or my brew paddle that I've had over here soaking in sanitizer this whole time and give it a good stir to mix it up. So what I'm going to do now, since we've mixed this up, first thing I'm going to do is take a temperature reading and see where we're at temperature wise to know if we're good to pitch our yeast yet or if I need to go a little bit lower. And that's saying 59, so wow, that's actually low. The yeast we're using is US 05. And if I remember correctly, let me check real quick. The optimal range for this yeast, well, it's 53.6 degrees to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're actually good. So what I'm going to do now is I have what's called a wine thief, and I'm going to take some of the wort out of here now, put it in this test tube with my hydrometer and get a gravity so we'll know our original gravity. Alright, as you can see I have our wine thief here. I'm just going to stick it in. It's been sanitized, so it's good to go. You stick it in, put your finger over the top. Comes up and it's got some in it. I'm going to put it in this jar here. I'll have to do this 2 or 3 times. Maybe once more. Oh, didn't get as much that time. But what we're looking for is for this hydrometer to float. There we go. And then I'll let that settle and read to see what our original gravity is. Alright, now that we're ready to go and we're going to pitch our yeast, I've got a pair of sanitized scissors, sanitized the packet of yeast. I'm going to cut the top of it open and then just sprinkle the yeast. Oop, a little dumped a little happy there, but that's alright, it'll find its way all around. Now some people like to mix it. I don't. I just let it find its way. Alright, now I got our airlock ready to go. Get that in. little far there, but that's all right. Take the lid off here, and what I like to put in there is sanitizer. I don't know if you guys can see that. Move that up there. Just pour a little in. And that should be good to go. Caps on. And now what I'll do is set up the swamp cooler like we talked about. And once I get that set up and where I want it to be, I'll show you how that's going. It is now 24 hours after pitching our yeast, and you can see we have active fermentation by evidence of our airlock there. And we've got a couple inches of water in this tub here, and our bucket's submerged in that. That water is about 63 degrees currently, and the temperature of our wort in our fermenter right now is sitting at about 64.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm very pleased with that. So we will continue on as we are. Unless I need to add some ice, then I will, but otherwise I'm happy with this temperature.